Guardian. Looming threats pose trouble now more than ever. We've received reports of the awakening of an ancient Vex mind in the underground electrical grid below Neomuna. Our data suggests that its time-lost armor renders our light weapons useless. But there may be another way. The mind guards a lost array of databanks housing something called the Strand Research Collective, a series of schematics detailing a weapon of darkness that could be capable of slaying the mind. Your objective is to breach the bunker, extract these Strand archives, and wield the knowledge to eliminate this Vex threat once and for all. To successfully complete your mission, you are going to need an absurdly strong build at your side. Combination blow, perhaps? No, that won't quite do. How about something with infinite grapple grenades and grapple melees? Something that grants unraveling and volatile rounds on all of your Strand and Void weapons? Something to provide the greatest ability spam loops in the entire game? And, of course, something to make you borderline invincible? Great. Then let's get you geared up. The first component we want to discuss with this build is what I consider to be the most fun ability in all of Destiny, the grapple grenade, where upon grenade activation, you'll hook to an object or point in the sky and swing towards it. The powerful part of this ability from a combat perspective, however, is of course the follow-up attack that you can activate during or shortly after grappling, the grapple melee, which will allow you to lunge forward to do a massive AoE strike to deal huge damage to all enemies, pushing them back and unraveling them. We'll have a lot more to talk about our grapple melee and how it can become even stronger further down this build, but first I want to focus on the unraveling element of the grapple melee, as it feeds perfectly into our first aspect, Stylish Executioner. This aspect is going to be our main defense mechanism for this build, granting us invisibility when defeating any enemy inflicted with an elemental debuff, such as, for example, the unraveling effect from our grapple melee, as well as many more debuffs coming throughout this build. Another example of one of these elemental debuffs is our second aspect, Winter's Shroud, which not only slows all nearby enemies upon class ability activation, turning them into fuel to go invisible when defeated through our Stylish Executioner, but also grants us a huge damage resistance bonus while dodging and rewards us with 300% additional base class ability regeneration for 3 seconds anytime we slow an enemy. And what's more is that 300% bonus class ability regeneration rate is procced any time we slow an enemy from any source, not just our Winter's Shroud dodge, which will become much more powerful when we talk about the rest of our core ability selections in just a moment. First things first though, I want to discuss our fragments, as they are the very thing that begin to take this build from good to incredible. The first of these fragments is the Facet of Protection, which simply grants us a bonus 15% damage resistance to all incoming damage when near enemies. Perfect for a build that will have us constantly grapple grenading in to get grapple melees off on packs of enemies. And slot number 2 is the Facet of Dawn, which, similar to our previous fragment, is a simple one that rewards us with the Radiant buff for a 25% weapon damage bonus upon striking an enemy with a powered melee hit, and rewards the buff to all of our nearby allies as well when that powered melee hit results in a final blow. And yes, as you might have guessed, the grapple melee does indeed count as a powered melee hit and will activate this fragment. Where things really start to get crazy though is in fragment slot number 3 with the Facet of Bravery, which awards all of our Void weapons with volatile rounds when defeating an enemy with a grenade final blow, and all of our Strand weapons with unraveling rounds when defeating an enemy with a powered melee. What's spectacular about this fragment in this build, however, is that defeating an enemy with a grapple melee counts as both a grenade final blow and a powered melee final blow, meaning that with one simple grapple melee kill, we will instantly receive volatile rounds on all of our Void weapons and unraveling rounds on all of our Strand weapons, both of which will elementally debuff our enemies and activate Stylish Executioner consistently in our gunplay combat loops. Do me a favor and hit those like and subscribe buttons down below if you didn't know that before watching this build video. Moving on to slot number 4, we have what I honestly consider to be one of, if not the most underrated fragment in the entire Prismatic suite, the Facet of Solitude, which upon scoring precision hits on enemies will emit a severing burst to apply the sever debuff to all enemies in a 3-meter radius, debuffing all of their damage output by 40%. I know that sever is not typically revered to be a particularly powerful debuff in Destiny, but the idea that you can cut the damage output from every enemy in the game by almost half simply by shooting them in the face is simply broken in my humble opinion. Furthermore, defeating any enemy inflicted with a strand debuff, such as Sever, the unraveling from our grapple melee, or our unraveling rounds from our strand weapons thanks to the Facet of Bravery, will also spawn a Tangle. Not only are Tangles extremely powerful in this season in particular, thanks to the Threaded Blast artifact mod, which significantly increases their blast radius and damage when blown up with a strand weapon, but they can also be grappled to without taking away your grapple grenade charge. As a result, you can do some pretty crazy stuff that involves grappling 3, 4, even 5 times in a row and getting a free grapple melee alongside each one by grappling to Tangles to arrive at them, picking them up and throwing them at a pack of enemies, and grappling to it again while it's in transit, and then getting another grapple melee off to create another Tangle through the Unraveling Blast, and continue to do it again. Once you master this aspect of the build, you will quite literally be zipping around the map so fast that your teammates will be begging you to slow down and leave some enemies left for them. Occupying the final fragment slot of this build will be the Facet of Purpose, which will award us with an elemental buff depending on the element of our super ability anytime we scavenge an Orb of Power. This fragment segues perfectly into talking about our super selection for this build, where I would urge you towards either the Deadfall Tether for maximum debuffing, zone control, and add clear potential, or Silence and Squall to lean more into the raw damage side of things. Both are spectacular, and both will award you with powerful defensive buffs through the Facet of Purpose, in Void Overshield on the Tether side of things, or Frost Armor when selecting Silence and Squall. So ultimately, I do leave this selection up to you. Personally, I love leaning into Tether a little bit more, but it is hard to say if that's because I think it's better or if I'm just being a little biased to my Omnioculus Void Hunter origins. As far as the rest of our core ability kit goes, throughout all my testing, my favorite melee ability selection ended up being Withering Blade by a wide margin. In and of itself, Withering Blade is nothing particularly incredible, but when you pair it with many aspects of this build, such as having 2 charges worth of elemental debuffs to proc Stylish Executioner, in addition to 2 extra ways to slow enemies to proc that 300% bonus class ability regeneration through Winter's Shroud, it's a pretty perfect pick. Add the cherry on top that one of these bad boys will instantly stun any Overload champion cold in its tracks, in addition to the fact that chucking both of them will stun an unstoppable champion, and it becomes one of the most versatile melee abilities in the entire game when paired with this setup. Alongside this melee ability, we will also be selecting the Gambler's Dodge class ability to refund a charge of it anytime we dodge near any enemy target. Now, if you thought this build looked good so far, we are about to crank the ability regeneration and damage or damage resistance up to 11 with our exotic armor selection, the Relativism Cloak. Specifically, we are looking for one with the Spirit of Inmost Light perk in column 1 to grant significantly increased ability regeneration to all of our abilities on ability cast. This exotic perk alongside this setup is a match made in heaven, considering that alongside your constant grappling, you also have 2 melee charges, one of which can be refunded by a Gambler's Dodge that also has a bonus 300% regeneration rate whenever you slow anything with either the dodge itself or one of the melee charges that you are refunding. And when you sync up this spirit with Transcendence, something you'll be popping every 30 seconds thanks to all of the light energy generation from void damage and darkness energy generation from strand weapons and grapple melee, you can literally refund your abilities faster than you can use them. The result is some of the craziest ability regeneration I have ever seen in Destiny. As far as slot number 2 goes, when it comes to the exotic class item perks, you have 3 options as far as I'm concerned. Option 1 leans into bonus grapple melee damage with the Spirit of Verity, which will grant stacks of death throws on strand weapon final blows to buff your grenade damage by up to 100% bonus damage at 5 stacks. And although it is called a grapple melee, death throws will in fact buff the damage of it as if it is a grenade. Option 2 is effectively a better version of option 1 with the Spirit of Syntheseps, which of course buffs all melee damage while surrounded by a whopping 165%. Needless to say, this effectively turns your grapple melee into a literal nuclear bomb. But say you want to lean a little bit more into damage resistance as opposed to the bonus grapple melee damage, in which case you'll want to go with my personal favorite second slot perk option, the Spirit of Surturacne, which simply grants you Woven Mail, a bonus 45% damage resistance buff, anytime you activate your grenade ability. With all of the ability regeneration from Inmost Light and the free grenade activations when grappling to a tangle, you will effectively have this Woven Mail damage resistance buff up permanently, which in conjunction with the invisibility from Stylish Executioner and some additional defensive buffs still yet to come, will have you literally invincible. Now, as I have said multiple times before throughout this build video, this build heavily favors void and strand weaponry due to the volatile and unraveling rounds we will be constantly receiving from grapple melee final blows through the facet of bravery. But which ones are the best for this build? In the kinetic slot, you have your strand options, where you can go with primary ammo picks like the Imminence Raid submachine gun with Demolitionist and Chaos Reshaped, the Rufus's Fury Root of Nightmares auto rifle with Demolitionist and Adrenaline Junkie, or the revamped Breach Light strand sidearm with Demolitionist and Swashbuckler. You've also got some strong special ammo options like the brand new Call sidearm with Demolitionist, Adrenaline Junkie, or last season's Scatter Signal Fusion rifle with Slice or Overflow along with Controlled Burst. Down in the heavy slot, you can go with either element, leaning into machine guns like Pro Memoria, Commemoration, or Hammerhead to take strong advantage of those volatile or unraveling rounds, or burstier picks like the Cataphract Strand Grenade Launcher or Semiotician Strand Rocket Launcher for champion and boss situations. Finally, up in the energy slot, we have our void weapons, where the only 2 picks I would ever personally consider are the Graviton Lance Exotic Pulse Rifle, or, if you have it, my absolute #1 top pick for this build, the Buried Bloodline Special Ammo Sidearm from Warlord's Ruin. If you are fortunate to have good enough RNG to possess this weapon, it alone takes this build from incredible to absolutely God tier. Reason being is the simple fact that killing enemies will reward you with the Devour buff, something that will not only grant you 100 HP per kill, further increasing your invincibility, but will also refund chunks of grenade energy with every kill, allowing you to grapple and grapple melee even more frequently than already before. But if you only had to pick 3, my personal favorite weapon setups for this build are either going with the Call Strand Sidearm, Graviton Lance Exotic Pulse Rifle, and a machine gun for ad clear, or a grenade or rocket launcher for champions and bosses, or, if you have it, rolling with a setup of the Imminence submachine gun, Buried Bloodline Exotic Sidearm, and the same heavy picks with the same rationale as before. With everything set up, All that's left is to outfit you with your stats and armor mods, starting with the helmet, where we will be taking a siphon mod matching the element of our primary ammo weapon, be that strand or void, along with a heavy ammo finder and scout. Down on the gloves, you'll go with a copy of impact induction for a chunk of grenade energy refund when dealing powered melee damage, as well as copies of firepower and heavy-handed to generate an orb of power when landing a powered grenade or melee final blow respectively, both of which are procced when defeating an enemy with a grapple melee, thus spawning 2 orbs of power in just 1 kill. Down on the chest, it's business as usual with a concussive dampener mod alongside 2 other elemental resistance mods matching the damage output of enemies in your activity of choice. On the boots, I'm recommending 1 strand and void weapon surge mod each for a 10% bonus to all of your weapon damage output, along with a scavenger mod matching the element of your heavy ammo weapon. Finally, on the class item, you'll want the classic hunter combo of Reaper, Powerful Attraction, and Bomber for orb generation on weapon final blows after class ability cast, or magnetization on class ability cast, and grenade regeneration on class ability cast. Finish things up in the stats department with a prioritization order of tier 10 resilience, followed by high intellect, followed by whatever else you want. Typically, you would want to spec into high mobility, discipline, or strength for bonus ability regenerations, but with all of the regen in this build through buffs, mods, fragments, aspects, and exotic class item perks, it'll hardly make a difference. You're looking all geared up now. It's time for you to go and extract the Strand Research Collective archives, defeat the Ancient Vex Mind, and anything else that would dare to challenge you. Before you head out, be sure to check out the written guide in the Mobalytics link down below, inside of which I have also included a Destiny item manager link that you can use to automatically equip all of this to your Guardian with just a few clicks. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this build video. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a great